Welcome to Married AF. We are your hosts, Brooke and Randall Fowler. On this show, we discuss the topics that really matter.
Like big veiny cocks and our favorite TV shows.
So pull up a chair at our kitchen table and hang out.
While I bulldog my nuts. Yo, what up?
Hello.
I can't hear anything in my headphones.
I can barely hear you. Hello.
Hey there, everyone.
Happy Friday.
What are they looking like?
It's fine.
Oh, well, fuck all that.
Good gracious.
What a week. We've had quite a busy week of podcasting.
Yeah. It's in one full week, we did 4 different interviews, I feel like, but wasn't it? Between Buff the last week, or when did we do Buff?
I don't know. We did Buff, Rachel, Sharon,
and then
Jami.
Yeah, and then we talked to Jami Rice from Murderish last night, and that was lovely. Sorry, I had to turn up the volume for Randall, but Jami was freaking amazing. She's so cool, and it was amazing to talk to her. Let me say amazing.
Yeah. No, she was great. I really enjoyed it. I know it was fun for you getting to shoot the true crime shit, and she's just, lovely.
She is. She's super nice, and it's weird because she's one of those people that, because we've, I've listened to pretty much all her podcasts, and we've been like chatting over social media and stuff. She's one of those people that it kind of felt like we were friends with her already before we talked to her.
Oh yeah.
So
I'd love to have a drink with her. She seems cool as shit.
Absolutely. I would love.
Super fun.
Yeah. I bet we would have fun if we could. So we need to go to California to see Sharon and Jami.
Yeah, she stole our thunder though. She reached out and told Brooke that she was going to send her a Murderish shirt. And that's usually our trick.
Like, you were our guest.
So now we can't rebuff because it sounds like we're giving it back as like, well, we'll give you one, even though we want to give you one, Jami.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably give you one anyways. I'll probably message you like tomorrow or something and see which one you want, because we have 2 right now that are available: the superhero one and the skeleton one. So.
Yeah, but don't worry about a shirt for me, Jami. Fuck me.
She said there wasn't any men's sizes.
Yeah, fuck me, right? I'm just kidding.
She said there was no men's sizes available right now.
It's fine, but make me a hoodie for when it gets cold.
I was about to say it's summer.
Yeah, so we got 6 months to prepare for a hoodie in my size.
To get stock in of extra large or extra large hoodies.
Yeah, but I mean, I had a great time with her. I thought her, her passion for true crime is obvious.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that shit, I think she could talk about it all day.
Oh, for sure.
All night.
Yep. And
all these cases and these crazy bastard serial killers and shit, she's all over it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's funny to hear her stories with the Dateline guys. I think everybody will enjoy those.
Yeah, I mean that, and all the Crime Con shenanigans. But yeah, it was a good time.
The fact that she's probably on the no-fly list now, that you guys will find that in the conversation. It's pretty funny.
That is a funny story that she told on one of her episodes like a week or so back, but it was really funny. But it was a pleasure speaking to her. And are we going to do so now are we really going to do the promo for our sponsor?
Well, absolutely.
Okay.
But first I wanted to say that up until recently, I've been looking for a personal lubricant and moisturizer.
Well,
at the same time. And you can never find those in one.
One that'll moisturize your whiner at the same time.
And possibly your skin. You can't find them together. And if you do, they cost like $5,000 for a bottle.
Well, that sounds outrageous.
But we found a miracle cure in Spunked. spunklube.com. Check them out. They have fantastic personal lubricants and moisturizer in one awesome bottle.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you right now, it is the preferred lubricant of the porn industry.
Wow.
That should say everything.
And all they do is stuff that requires lube.
Yes, and they have a fantastic product that is you could eat it. It's edible.
Oh, okay.
And it's made strictly from avocado oil and coconut oil.
Boom.
So you could probably cook with it.
I don't know.
There's
I feel like it's
all
flammable.
kind of things you could do with these incredible products.
Uh-huh.
And, we're going to put this out here. Spunked is the only lubricant we will use here at Married AF.
Yep.
And we've got a little, our good buddy Muddy,
Dr. Muddington,
who is also a huge fan of Spunked, just on a whim sent us the following promo for them. And, coincidentally, Spunked is our very first sponsor. So let's hear what Muddy has to say.
Now it's time for Muddy's money tip. But not just a tip. Balls deep. Thanks to the lubricating power of Spunk Lube.
Coke.
Coke.
It's always got to throw the Coke at the end.
So, shout out to Spunk Lube.
Uh-huh.
And, we couldn't be more proud to have a more wholesome sponsor on our team.
It's right up our alley, babe. I mean, for our content, I
love it. It's
I'm
not
wearing
even
my
for the
shirt right now.
content. I love it all the way around. People need to embrace their lubes. Quit hiding your lubes and being ashamed of your lubes.
Sure.
And the packaging's awesome. It looks hardcore. It doesn't look like a...
It looks like a Monster Energy drink.
Yeah, it doesn't look like your mom or dad's lubricant.
Doesn't look like your average KY
No,
jelly.
you could put this stuff on your dresser. People would walk by and think it's anything else. But really, it's your sexy time
Except
stuff.
for the fact that it says spunk on it.
But you wouldn't think to read it. Just looks...
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Okay.
So, there you go. There's our first sponsor. And we went balls deep into that.
We're very
we're
proud.
excited. We're very aroused.
Very aroused. All right. Yeah. So everybody enjoy our chat with Jami Rice, host of the Murderish podcast. And you should listen to her podcast and follow her on Twitter at Murderish Pod.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she says it again at the end. So sorry. But it's badass. And
She's the shit. And she's got an awesome voice.
she does. Her voice is very soothing, and it's the perfect true crime podcast voice. So
Yeah, give it a listen. And here she is. So
Enjoy.
Go fuck yourselves.
Hello.
Hello, it's Jamie.
Hi, Jamie. It's Brooke.
How's it going?
It's going wonderful.
Good.
Hello, Jamie. It's Randall.
Hey, Randall, how's it going?
It's going great. Going great. Thanks so much for calling in and talking with us.
Heck yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm so glad you guys reached out.
Yeah. Do you ever? We just started recording, by the way. We just kind of go right into it.
I do the same thing.
Okay. Like, 'cause you never know. Like, then I would be scared I'd forget or something.
Yep. Yep.
But do you do many guests? Like, are you ever on that side very much?
Yeah, so like other people kind of chatting with me for their podcast,
Yeah.
you mean? Yeah, so I've done it, a couple times, not much. It's mostly me bringing other people on my podcast, but I love doing it because it's like no work for me.
Right. Less. Yeah. You just get to chill and talk.
Yeah, I just get to sit here and talk. But yeah, I was on the Pod Stuff podcast. I think you know that.
Yeah.
And then which other one that I did another one. can't remember now, but yeah, I've only done it like 2 or 3 times, but it's been it's fun because, like I said, I just get to sit here and chat, which is I'm really good at. I used to get in trouble at school for talking too much.
Well, that's why you started a podcast, right? Because you like talking, and yeah, same here.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so John from Brand X?
Yeah, I talked to him. Wait, is he the one with the podcast that has a YouTube as well?
He, John Buchanan, doesn't he?
Oh, John. Yes. Oh my God. I don't know him as Brand X. I just know him as John from Audio Editing Solutions.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. John is my right hand guy.
Yeah. He actually is the one that, pointed me in the direction of Murderish. Cause he, we just started doing this in February, and you started in November, which congrats, by the way, on the download number being almost 100,000. That's awesome.
I appreciate it.
But John was one of the first people on Facebook that, like, in one of those million podcaster groups, that
yes,
he was one of the first people that really like reached out and offered to help with stuff and gave us a lot of good advice. And then after like our second episode where it was pretty obvious that I was obsessed with true crime, he was like, "Hey, have you ever listened to Dirty John?" I was like, yeah. And he was like, "Well, you should go listen to Murderish because she interviews Tara Newell and Emily Meehan and Tanya." And I was like, "Wait a minute, hang on." So, and then I was hooked.
Yeah. Did you?
Yeah. No.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I that's so awesome because, and I couldn't remember how the three of us connected. I just remember at one point, I think that you guys started interacting with me on social media a little bit. And I was like, these guys are really cool. And I didn't know that John was the one who recommended the show. And like, yeah, John is awesome. Every now and then I'll listen to the She Podcast. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've listened to that one, but they give a lot of good like advice. They're just like, they're like podcast experts. And so John is their audio editor, but he's also featured on the show, so he'll chime in almost every episode, and it's hilarious. And so that's how I found John, because I knew he was their audio editor. So when I was getting started, I just called him. I was like, "Look, I know that you're She Podcast audio editor. I'm such a newbie at podcasting. I need all the help I can get. Can you do my editing for me?" And he's like, "Heck yeah!" So, and not only does he do my editing, he really like walked me through a lot of things as far as like equipment setup and just good sound quality. So I go to him I probably don't pay him enough for everything he provides for me, to be honest.
Yeah, he actually is the one
John's great.
He's the one that gave us like the list of stuff, because when we first started, we were literally just with like a snowball mic plugged into the computer, and then like after a month we were like, okay, we're over this. So John was like, okay, this is what you want to get, and like helped us get all the equipment that we needed. So he's awesome.
The story though with John is hilarious. How we really met up was I had posted on a Facebook, one of the million groups that we were in when we were brand new and trying to learn, and I had no idea what the verbiage was or what normal podcasters say, and I was like, hey, is anyone in here interested in listening to each other's shows and leaving reviews, and we'll listen to yours, you listen to ours. And John chimed in, and he was in like a bad mood, and he was like, "Oh, that's bullshit. We don't review swap and all this and that." And I really had no idea. And I replied to him. I was like, "Hey man, sorry that you're in such a bad mood, but I mean, we're brand new. We've been doing this, a week." But cool. I was like, if that's wrong verbiage, then, cool. I said, we enjoy what we do. It's not, it's only a hobby.
You said something about swapping reviews, but you didn't know that was like a negative connotation.
And then what was great about it, though, was on his next podcast with Brand X, he talked about it. And he said, God, I really regret it. I got into it with this guy, and I shouldn't have done it, and I didn't take it personally because, I'm not really matter, but he had went to our Facebook page and looked at our pictures and saw I was a big guy, and he was talking on his podcast, and he was like, I looked at this guy's pictures, and he is a refrigerator with arms, and he's got the big beard, and I had just... and it was great. And he reached out to me, and I was like, man, I'm not upset at all. And from there, he's helped us for free with just such good advice. And so we love those guys too.
Well, he had like immediately after he jumped down your throat, he like immediately like messaged us and was like, because you could tell he was like, I was a dick. I'm sorry. Oh my bad.
That sounds like John.
Yeah.
John is, and I know he was probably going to lose his shit with me very early on because I was like you. I mean, I didn't know anything, and I'm like this helpless soul, like, asking stupid questions and he was very patient with me. But now we've gotten into a rhythm now that I've been doing it a few months, and I kind of can read his mind as far as what he needs from me in order to put my show together. And I let him have some creative on it as well. Like sometimes I'll just send him, some editing notes and go, look, these are the things I know I want as far as the editing, but do what you want to do as far as the rest. But we don't really go back and forth too much as far as putting my show together. I mean, he'll send me, the final product and I'll listen, and maybe there might be one or two small changes, but he's just really, really good. And like I said, very patient, and he's there for me if I just need to call and ask him, even like about monetizing. And I know he's not big on like monetizing his stuff, but he still has advice on it, and he's just really, really, really helpful. And yeah, he could be a little testy sometimes, but I don't know if the guy even sleeps. Like he just edits 24 hours a day.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
I've
he's an
noticed
animal.
that with some of the times that we've talked, he's up and at it all the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
That guy. But I love his podcast is actually really great, and those guys are hilarious. And so I got nothing but love for John, and we're good buddies now. And so I just thought that was funny.
Well, and I guess Randall didn't know that was how, because I was like, that John's John edits Jamie's show, and that's how he was like, wait a minute. What?
And I didn't even know that. And yeah, John is seriously my biggest cheerleader. He recommends my show to probably people I'm not even aware of, which I appreciate so much. He's not a big true crime guy, by the way. So he doesn't really, and so I just really appreciate when he, recommends my show.
I mean, there's about 17,000 billion true crime podcasts out there. And so that's a, I mean, the fact that you've got so many downloads and so many like loyal listeners, that I think that speaks volumes, because there's plenty of options. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's insane.
Do you design all of your shirts and stuff yourself?
Yes, and I am so not an artsy person at all.
They are awesome though.
I want to get some stickers.
I love the cool ass look of like the hoodie that you wore to Disneyland that we saw. I would bust that in a heartbeat. And
that is so cool.
And your logo,
with the knife,
with the knife is just awesomely simple and fantastic.
Thank you so much for saying that. And honestly, my thought behind it when I created it myself using like the Canva app, because I just needed something cheap and something quick. But I also just, in my mind, first of all, I'm not artsy, so I needed to make it simple. But second of all, whenever I look at show artwork, I love when it's kind of just like to the point, and I can look at the artwork and understand what I'm going to get into when I hear the podcast. So, but yeah, as far as mine goes, I mean, it's literally like, I think it's 3 colors. It's a knife and the name of the podcast. And I'm like, okay, people will clearly know this is about murder.
Right. Absolutely.
But it's simple. It's very simple, because I cannot go any further than that with my creative. I don't have a creative bone in my body.
Well, I drew the one, like our logo is our picture, and then there's the little up in the upper corner. I drew that, but I want to do something with it. But I'm like, now we've been having that one for the whole time. I don't know.
I know. It's hard to switch, because I've thought about it too. And I've had a couple people reach out and say, hey, I do graphic design. Would you want any help, with your logo? And there's so many things I want to do with the podcast that I keep saying I'm going to do. But it's like, dude, I'm like a one-woman show, and I work full time and I have 3 kids, as every other podcaster probably does too. Like we don't really have all the time that we would want, to produce the podcast. But there are just so many things I'd like to do with it. But I just try to tackle, one thing at a time. And, but yeah, I might do something extra with the logo at some point, but, It's on my list.
Yeah, right. On the to-do list that is probably as long as ours. So like when you're like, how long does it take you to prepare for a show? Like when you pick a case that you want to talk about?
So yeah, so when I started the podcast, I didn't know that it would like kind of morph into sort of like 50%, as of right now, at least, it's kind of 50%, interviews with people in the true crime community. And then the other 50% is me telling, a true crime story. I thought it was just going to be mostly storytelling, maybe bring on a guest here and there. So, the answer to that is like, I love it when I can bring the guests on for interviews, not only because I love to pick people's brains and things like that. And I love to chat with people, but it is actually a lot easier for me because obviously it's not as research, intense. There's really not a lot of writing. Yes. You don't have to write a script. You're not pulling, I typically would, so those take a lot less time. But as far as the storytelling, I mean, there's one story that I've been working on now for like 6 weeks. And most of that is because I've just been pulled in so many other directions that I've had to put it down and stop. But, I can't work on it nonstop like I would like to. But it's just so much involved. There's like court documents. Most of the time I'm trying to pull court docs and read through those. And then I'm trying to read through, different articles. And then there's the script. So it varies. It could be anywhere from like a week on the very, very, very short end, to like right now I'm going on 6 weeks with this one.
Jeez. Well, yeah, I would probably prefer the interview style too. I mean, that's why, there's no way I could even fathom doing having to write a story. And that's why our podcast is typically, I mean, we've done a few interviews. This is like, we've done,
third?
Nope, fourth. We did Buff.
Yeah.
And Rachel, and then Sharon Hills, and Jay.
Yes.
And it's all in like a week, and it's been so much fun. And it's but normally it's like me and Randall just shooting the shit and like talking about
so
TV
I'm
shows.
envious. I'm like envious of podcasts like yours, and I'm like, oh my god, why didn't I start a podcast where I just get to shoot the shit with somebody?
Yeah, you should do like an episode with your husband because y'all are cute.
Yeah. Oh my god. Thank you. But oh my God, I just did a Q&A episode. It was supposed to drop yesterday, but we're running a little behind. But anyway, on there, somebody asked me, would you ever consider collaborating with your husband? I'm all, first of all, the guy is not into murder like I am. And second of all, I would not trust what would come out of his freaking mouth. Like he's not, he's not known for being appropriate. So if people can handle that, that's great.
That's the good thing about our podcast is that it is everything inappropriate.
Oh yeah.
So.
And I love that because you just, right, well, you're just 100% yourselves, and that's probably why people love it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I thought that, I think you have a beautiful family. By the way, all of you guys are wonderful, very handsome collectively.
Oh, it's all Photoshop.
But I was wanting to ask you really about, since you've been going since November, right?
Yep.
So when did you notice, or was there a point where you noticed like, okay, this thing is getting traction? Like how far in were you? Because I'm sure you would have done it regardless. Like we would too. Even if we just had like 5 listeners, we'd still do it because it's fun for us. But was there a moment where you were like, oh shit, this is, dang, some people like it?
Yes, I definitely, I did not know what to expect. I had 0 expectations, and I kept like talking to myself before I launched, like, Jami, what have you got to lose? Guess what? If nobody listens, if you get like 5 listeners, like you said, you're no better or worse off, right? It's not, I mean, you didn't have a podcast before, so who cares? But, after I released my first episode, I would say within like that first 30 days, and then I released another episode, I think 2 weeks later, and I got I can't remember how many downloads, but it was like the low four figures. And I was like beyond excited about that because I truly, truly thought I would have like 10 listeners in the first month. I really know. But I would say by the time I released my second episode, I saw that there was a nice pattern going of growth. There were, the episodes were growing at a really good clip. And that's when I kind of knew. And then people were jumping on board as far as the following on social media. So I kind of, got really excited after episode number 2. And I saw, the numbers are still going up. That means people still like it. And, since then it's been a really good, up and to the right pattern. So far I've been lucky. And, with every episode that's released, it's just been tremendous growth. And I know at some point that'll probably have to level out. I don't know at what point that is. But it's been exciting to watch, honestly. And the episodes that are more popular than others have completely caught me by surprise, and I didn't expect at all. Like there's one episode that I released, which was my personal story about a strange guy.
So
good. I only released that because I didn't have anything other material to release because I was late in working on a story. And I was like,
it was such a good story though, and it was like because it was about. And it was a personal story. So that's what had me like riveted was like, oh my God.
Yeah. Oh my God. And it's so crazy to hear you say that because I totally thought, oh great, I'm going to release this. And so far I've been talking about murders. I'm going to tell this stupid story that didn't end in murder and people are going to be so disappointed. I told my husband, I said, I think this isn't going to do well.
It's still the same vein though, like it's all things. Yeah, exactly. All things like just weird and creepy and fuck that guy. Like, what the hell is he doing?
Oh my God. And you're dude, I still want to catch that guy.
Oh my God. That was so creepy. Yeah.
People are still reaching, or actually like 3 or 4 people reached out to me right away after Golden State Killer got arrested. They're like, Jamie, do you think it was Golden State Killer?
Oh my God. I'm not familiar with that town that you grew up in. Is that near Sacramento?
It's not. Sacramento's more like Northern California, and Redlands is Southern California. But the Golden State Killer
he went all over
Orange County. Yeah, he was in Southern California too. Orange County's about an hour away from Redlands, so I guess you just never know. But I don't think it was GSK. But how crazy is that?
Well, so Jamie, what does your? I'm sure he's very supportive, but what does your husband think of your? Podcast taking off and the social media following and all that has come along with it for you?
He trips out on it because just like me, he's like, he just doesn't, he had all the faith in the world in me, totally. But to this day, he's like, I just can't believe that people, that many people like listen to your podcast. Like it's weird for him.
Cause that's not his gig that he likes. Yeah. Like, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
He had no idea.
Does he not listen to podcasts at all?
He doesn't. The only time he's listened to podcasts is when we go to Kern River, like to go camping all the time. Mm-hmm. And so when we're on a long road trip, I'm like, hey, you want to put in a podcast? He's like, sure. And he'll get totally into it. But that's probably the only time that he'll sit and listen. He's a really, really busy guy. He's always on the phone for work and he just never makes the time to listen. But he's really proud of me. He tells me all the time. No. He's like, wow. Because I always go to him if I hit like certain milestones. I'm like, guess what? Yeah. He gets excited and he tells his family and friends. It's funny. He's a real humble guy, but he definitely brags for me, which is kind of cute because
that is super cute. And he's got a mega successful business too, right? Like he's got that Lawn Kings, or is it a turf company or
so he has Lawn Kings, which is a synthetic grass installation company, and then we just launched Titan Turf Supply, which is a synthetic, or it's a turf components company. So we sell the synthetic grass and then a bunch of like components that go under a yard, and we launched that last year.
That just sounds like such a California thing. I don't think that would work here in Georgia.
A lot of people in California are doing that like at their residences, right? Because I know Adam Carolla did his whole yard in turf.
Yeah, I mean, even like, yeah, see, we've been out to some big name celebrity houses that wanted at their house. They're like huge mansions. It's crazy because back in the day, they called it AstroTurf back in the day. And it was like that ugly, plastic, shiny, lime green crap.
Like the Brady Bunch's backyard.
Yes, exactly. And now it's come a long way and it's really high end and it's beautiful and it looks and feels like real grass. And like, there's like no maintenance and you save on water and yada yada. But yeah, its business has been good for him. And yeah, it's totally in California. It's a big thing because people want to go green here,
Well, and there's not like, I mean, there's not a whole lot of rain that I would think, for some reason, I would think rain would screw it up if it was, because I mean, this time of year here in Georgia, I mean,
well, no, like that turf, you can just spray it off with a hose pipe, right? Like if a dog, craps or something on your lawn, you just spray it off, right?
Well, that's what we need to put out there where John just keeps tearing shit up. It's driving me nuts. Our pit bull, we can't keep grass because he obviously pees acid.
Oh my!
Because he just, everywhere he goes, I'm like, well, okay, we just don't need grass.
So you were recently down here, though, in our neck of the woods, right? In Nashville?
Yeah.
Yes, I was.
So how did you enjoy Nashville? That's only a couple hours from us. We love Nashville.
Oh my God, I love Nashville. I was just in Nashville last year in October on like a girls trip, which was crazy. It's so much fun. But yeah, I just went again earlier this month for CrimeCon and it was a whirlwind. I mean, I miss it already. It was so much fun. It was so surreal to just honestly, the biggest reason why I wanted to go was to connect with all of my, favorite podcasters who I've been connecting with on social media for several months. So it's like the anticipation to actually meet them in person is so big,
Yeah.
It was crazy. So fun. It went by way too fast and you get to meet all these other like true crime celebrities like Nancy Grace and Jim Clemente. And
oh my gosh, I know. I was showing Randall the picture of you. I'm like, Nancy Grace. Like, what? Like, not everybody loves Nancy Grace, but it's Nancy Grace.
Yes, that's exactly. Whether you love her or you hate her, it's Nancy Grace.
Gosh, she was entertaining.
Yeah, the big thing was meeting, oh my God, she's freaking entertaining whether you love her or hate her. Totally. But the best part was meeting the Manx, Josh Mankiewicz. Oh my God. That just made my whole life.
Keith Morrison, I for some reason am fascinated with Keith Morrison. His face, like the face, and Mankiewicz too. Like I record, Dateline is in like syndication every night. I don't know if it is there, but like every night at 8 it comes on. So like I record it and watched every episode and it just cracks me up. The faces that they make. Like, I feel like they're supposed to probably like not have the look on their face like, bitch, quit lying. Like, but they just, all of their emotions are on their face and they're like,
oh my God.
Really? Are you sure? And
they
cracks me up.
Funny. And they're exactly like that in person, by the way. Like my friend Simone and I, she's from, Murderish Minors podcast. Manx invited us to a Heather McDonald's comedy show. So we went with him and Keith Morrison and some other people to Heather's comedy show. We sat at their table and met Heather afterward and all this stuff. And then on the Uber ride home, I was talking about Keith Morrison's shoes. I actually did like a Facebook Live for my Murderish Facebook group because they're all, oh my God, you met Keith Morrison, Josh Mankiewicz. And he was wearing like the coolest shoes. He wears like Chuck Taylors with no laces.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Like he's so cool. And
he's so cool.
He just exudes cool. Like, and he's just always so like, just even keeled looking. Like, that's amazing. You got to just kick it with them. And so Heather McDonald, is she married to one of Mank's friends or?
No, not at all. There's no connection that way. But Manx has been have you listened to Juicy Scoop podcast? That's Heather McDonald's podcast.
I've listened to her audiobook. Didn't she have an audiobook?
She does. I think it's like you'll never blue ball in this town again.
Yes, I listened to that a couple of years ago.
Well, I loved her on Chelsea Lately. She cracked me up.
Yeah, so now her main gigs are her Juicy Scoop podcast, which she's killing it at, and then she's got her stand-up shows. But that's kind of what helped me launch my podcast was Heather invited me on to be a guest on Juicy Scoop. Last year, so last year in the summer, I was a juror on a first-degree murder trial out here in LA County. And she heard about it and she emailed me and was like, hey, do you want to be on the podcast? I was like, well, hell yeah. I was already a listener of her show. I'm like, oh my God, how fun. So she had me on her podcast just to kind of like tell the story of, just about being a juror on a murder trial. And I had already been wanting to launch a podcast, a true crime podcast, but that was kind of like the kick in the ass I needed because her listeners were so supportive. Because her listeners and my listeners, it's like the same demographic.
Mm-hmm.
Like generally the listeners who listen to her show are also very into true crime. So a lot of them hopped on board. And that's where I got a decent amount of my listeners, I think, from the beginning was from being on Heather's show.
Yeah. That makes total sense.
But yeah, they're not related at all. Heather Manx was a guest on Heather's Juicy Scoop podcast. And then they were going to be in Nashville at the same time. It just so happened. And so he ended up going to her. Yeah. While he was at CrimeCon, he took a break and went to her comedy show. Yeah.
Well, did you go to the Golden State Killer I'm sure you did. The presentation or whatever they had with Billy Jensen and Paul Holes.
I met Paul Holes and some of the other people like separately in a different presentation, but I wasn't able to go to the GSK thing because I think it conflicted with the Jim Fitzgerald presentation.
Oh yeah,
because like some of the sessions it sucked because you kind of had to like choose between two babies. Yeah, you're like, oh shoot, who do I want to see more? And
that sucks.
Jim Fitz was a guest of mine on Murderish.
I loved that episode or both two parts.
Thank you. Yes, he's so fascinating. I was so excited to be able to talk to him.
Yeah, we had just watched the thing on Netflix, and I keep wanting to call it Mindhunter, but I'm like, it's not Mindhunter.
Another great show.
Yeah, I'm like, but God, what the hell was it called, babe? And I'm like,
Manhunt.
Manhunt. That's why I keep wanting. Thank you.
Sounds the same.
It does. Like we watched that on Netflix, and it was so good. And it was so interesting to hear him. I love that he was pointing out everything that was like
real.
Real. He was like, well, that was just, Hollywood taking their liberties and making it more interesting. And like, I love that he wanted to point out all that,
he was cool.
Yeah, I love that episode. And he just came across as a cool ass, like man's man. Like I totally dug him on that interview. I thought you handled yourself awesome with him too.
Oh, thank you. I was definitely nervous. I would say he's been my biggest guest. I mean, Tara Newell was big too, just because the Dirty John podcast.
Yeah. Well, all three of those. I mean, those are all some pretty big guests. I mean, because all three of the ladies that were even just involved with Dirty John.
Yeah. I mean, I was so excited to talk to them. And Tanya Bales and I still kind of keep in touch to this day. She was Dirty John's first wife. Yes. And she is just such a cool, smart,
she just sounded like the coolest lady. Like,
oh my God. She is. I was like, I idolize you. Like, you're a badass.
And
you
all
really
the shit
are.
she
you may
dealt
not know
with.
it, but you are. Yeah. So, but yeah, those interviews are so much fun. I just did another one with a Dirty John related female, which I'm trying to decide what to do with. So I haven't released it yet.
Yeah. Well, so okay, with the NBC Dirty John, I guess it's going to be a mini series or that's coming out later this year. I mean, that's like Eric Bana nailed it. Yeah. I love that he's going to be, because I mean, he's gorgeous and can be evil.
Yes.
And Connie Britton playing Deborah Newell is awesome. But like, I mean, they're obviously going to be filming it out in LA. Do you think there's a possibility for like a Jami Rice cameo in the Dirty John miniseries?
My gosh. Don't get me excited. I'm going to like pass out right now. No. I don't know if they have any interest, but if my phone rings and it's Hollywood, I will answer.
I think they should, because I mean, you've interviewed you're very close to it with having interviewed all the people involved, and I think that would be amazing. I think they should.
Oh, it would be so much fun. You know what my dream would be? I haven't hit like all the ladies up yet, but I've been wanting to do like a live event, like a Murderish live event, and I don't know exactly what we would do, but I imagine it being like in a, where there's a bar so you can get drinks, but some sort of stage. And I don't know what we would do, but I would love to bring some of the ladies of Dirty John that I've interviewed and just have people come and, get to talk to the ladies
Yeah.
and pick their brains and stuff like that. And
Like a panel, like Comic-Con. Like,
yeah.
That's how I would picture it. Doing like a panel of all these survivors and contributors to those stories you've done. That would be fucking awesome.
yeah.
I would love to do it because I love interacting with people, and I just know that people are just so fascinated by Dirty John, and I think that they would love to meet these ladies in person and really just like want to talk to them and you know, get questions answered. And so that would be fun. And Tanya and I talked about we were half joking, but you know, we might do it. We were talking about doing like a viewing party when the miniseries comes out for Dirty John. And I was like, Tanya, I told her, I was like, if you come out here to LA, you could even stay at my house if you want to. We could have a viewing party. And I said, I'll show you all around LA, but how fun would that be?
Oh my gosh, that would be so fun.
Yeah, hope it happens.
I know.
While we're talking about interviewing people, I was wanting to pick your brain on the first time you interviewed somebody that, you know, was in your eyes, you know, a pretty big celebrity or well known, especially in your category. Were you super nervous, and how did that end up going? Like your very first one. And the reason I ask is because I'm sure you saw it on Twitter. You know, last night we interviewed Chris Hardwick's mom. At Nerdist Twitter, Sharon Hills.
Nerdist mom.
And she was incredible. But I mean, we were both like, oh God, how is this going to go? I mean, geez, we're nobody. And this is, you know, Chris Hardwick's mom, not only his mom, but she's just a superstar. Like her Twitter feed is incredible.
Yeah.
And she's just an awesome lady. And it ended up being, I can't wait till we release it tonight for people to listen. She is a gem of a woman, and she just talked to us for I mean, she would have kept going.
Well, she was,
and we're nobody. She was amazing.
That is, and bravo on that, because you know it's not easy landing, you know, interviews like that. So when one comes your way, you're able to land it. That's, you know, job well done. Lucky. I can't wait to listen to that one. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I was pretty nervous, but because I'm like, Chris Hardwick's like my pretend celebrity BFF. I'm like,
we all have one.
Right. I'm like, we're best friends. He just doesn't know. And so, yeah, I mean, Randall literally just like messaged her on Twitter, and she was like, sure, I'll come on. I was like, what?
Oh my gosh.
What? But yeah, I mean, I'm sure like before Fitz was probably pretty nerve-wracking.
Yes. You know what it is? Like, I honestly, I love to talk to people. It's something I'm super like comfortable doing because I like it so much. I love to pick people's brains. So I typically don't get super nervous. I just worry about our listeners going to find this entertaining. So that's what I worry about is like, am I going to ask the right questions? Are people going to be bored to tears and just go, we'll skip this episode? You know, I just never know. But I typically don't get nervous when I talk to people because I'm just so excited to get my hands on them. But probably my heart was beating a little faster with Fitz. And even Rod Demery, he's the retired. Oh, gosh.
Yeah. I knew there was another one that I listened to, and I actually went and binge watched Murder Chose Me because of hearing him on your show. And I was like, this guy sounds cool as shit. So I went and listened and binge watched. I mean, how good is that? I mean, that ID Go app on my iPad, I'm like, I just put it up on my desk and like binge watch stuff. Typically.
Hell yeah. It's so convenient. I mean, you can watch murder all day long.
I know. Oh, do you watch Breaking Homicide on ID?
No, do I need to put that on my list?
Yeah. So I don't know if you ever watch, Big Brother, like reality shows at all? Like
years ago I got into it, but I haven't watched it in a long time.
Yeah, well, Derek Levasseur was on Big Brother a few seasons ago, and he's actually a police detective. He didn't tell anybody, obviously, when he went on the show, and he was the best player ever, and he won, of course, and then was like, haha, I'm a cop. So that's why you guys didn't know everything else. But he, it's him and a forensic psychologist, my bad, going and researching all these cold cases and stuff. But it's pretty good. I mean, I feel like most of the stuff is cold cases.
Oh, that's right up my alley. I'll totally put that on my list. What's it called again?
Breaking Homicide.
Okay, I'm going to put that on my list. That sounds good.
It's It's great, and if you get Derek on your show, you're gonna have to name drop because me and him should be best friends. He's my favorite Big Brother player ever.
Okay, so now I'm gonna try and get Derek on my show just to connect you guys.
Right. Yeah, Randall's a Big Brother super fan. Like, really, Randall needs to go on Big Brother, but he would be I'm like, if you go on that show, you would win. It's just I worry about him not like being in a house for 3 months, not being able to go do his like normal routine, which is just a whole other story.
Dude, well, first of all, you're so lucky you have a husband who will watch reality TV, because my husband is like, well, there's a couple shows that we can watch together that are reality TV, but most of the time, like if I put the Housewives on, he's like, oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
He hates it,
oh, Randall got me back into like The Voice and American Idol and all that. Like, he's more the driver of watching that kind of stuff. And I'm like, none of this has murder.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just a funny dynamic with me and Brooke, because I'm like the big guy with the beard, bald head, and I like The Voice and Big Brother, and I don't drink a whole lot, and then you got Brooke, the little petite woman that loves murder, beer, and all this other stuff, and people get it ass backwards, which I love it. I mean, it's a great dynamic for us. I think it's why we work so well. But I'm definitely a teenage girl at heart.
Oh my God! It sounds like me and Brooke are kindred spirits.
Yeah.
Because I never met an alcoholic beverage that I don't like, and I do like a lot of murder.
Yeah. I mean, well, and it's funny. Like I go through. Sometimes I'll hit like a wall, and I'll be like, you know what? Maybe I don't need to listen to every murder show in the world all day today. Like, cause I just listened to 3 audiobooks in a row, like Stranger Beside Me, and
oh, that's so good.
Oh my God, so good. And Killer Clown, and then and Golden State Killer, and then Green River, Running Red, and like all back to back. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and I listened to Chris Hardwick's podcast from a few weeks ago that had Louis Anderson on. So like I went and bought like a palate cleanser, like Louis Anderson's book. Yep. Hey Mom, I'm like, I need something maybe just to switch it up and, and then go back to murder.
I have to do the same thing. Yeah, no, I always go back to murder, and 95% of my podcasts are true crime. But yeah, for sure, I sometimes have to go, okay, Jamie, like I'm paranoid. Like I don't want to go to sleep at night because I've listened to way too much murder. And that's when I know, okay, I need to switch it up a little bit.
Exactly. And I'm like, sometimes I feel like am I just pussing out? Like, I'm like, maybe I'm just human,
Pretty sure you're just human. Because, sometimes I just need to go play with my toddler. I'm like, okay, Stevie, do you want to play right now?
Exactly.
I just got done listening to something about Ted Bundy, and I am very afraid.
My brain's in a dark place.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we have a 4-year-old little boy too, and I think him and Stevie would get along swimmingly because they sound like a couple of clowns.
Oh, my God, yes.
Is having a 4-year-old is probably one of the funnest ages ever.
Oh, I'm having like more fun with her now than I ever had. And yeah, like we have a lot of conversations about farts and poop and butt faces. And I'm like, okay.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, she busts in when I'm recording. So I've featured her on some of the episodes because I'm like, screw it. She's a mic hog. Like she demands to be on the microphone sometimes.
That's hilarious.
So I just kind of feature her at the end. But yeah, one time I was doing, it was the Justin Hopper murder episode, and I was interviewing a really good friend of the victim. And her name was, Susie. And she starts talking about the victim, and Stevie busts in the background. She's like, Mom, I have to go to the bathroom. I said, oh, okay. I'm like, go ahead. She goes, actually, I have to go poop.
Oh, I think I heard that you had like an outtake on something that had that. Oh my God. I was like, yes, girl, I got a 4-year-old. That's why we record it this late at night, because he goes to bed and then this is the only time we can do it. Like, cause otherwise it's not happening.
Oh my God. We need to get them together if you're ever on this coast. That would be awesome.
Hey, I wanted to ask you if, just to make sure you're cool with it, we did get, a good bit of fan questions for you.
cool.
or listener questions. People that chimed in from Twitter and sent us some questions. So I want to make sure, are you okay with us fireballing these at you? Because most of them seem okay, but there's a couple of pretty funny ones in there. But
ask the funny ones too. I'm all about it.
cool. Well, I'm going to start it then.
Yeah, do that one.
This one came in, and it is for you to play Fuck, Marry, and Kill. It's the Dateline edition. Lester Holt, Keith Morrison, and Josh Mankiewicz.
Oh, shit. Okay.
That's a tough one.
Well, I'm definitely going to off Lester. He's a really nice guy, but I'm going to off him.
I figured that.
You know what? Manx is a friend of mine at this point, so I think it'd be really awkward if we screwed each other. So I'm going to say I'll marry Manx, and then I'll definitely give Keith the ride of his life.
Nice. Nice.
Great answer.
Yes.
Great. Solid answer.
Love it.
For the win.
For the win, yeah. As soon as I saw that one, I was like, I bet she hung out with Manx and Keith. So,
yeah.
All right. So the next one is, what serial killer fascinates you the most and why?
I've always been fascinated by BTK, and I think it's because he scares me the most out of all serial killers. Just, reading some books about him and truly like the things that he used to do, it just terrifies the shit out of me. So he's always fascinated me. I mean, a lot of serial killers live double lives. He certainly did. Ted Bundy did. But like BTK lived like a full-blown 180 life. And for many, many decades. And like he would lay in bed next to his wife every night, and had she known the crazy things he was doing. And he was like, a high-ranking member of his church. People like loved and respected him. And he just did like terrible. So he fascinates me, and I can't get enough of like reading about him. So yeah, he's probably, and then definitely BTK.
I think that's the next book I'm going to get. Is BTK.
I think he's going to be the focus of the next season of Mindhunters, right? Like he's in the background.
Well, he is the guy that they kept showing.
I really want a very well done movie or series on BTK because I'm with you. That guy fascinates me. He is a stone cold. Yeah. I mean, just after he was caught, that dude has no emotions. I mean, he is dead inside.
Yes.
Well, that's what and he had a family too. So like, how do you pull that off with no,
Yeah. That's exactly right. And like, I mean, just fair warning. I mean, I'm sure you guys know about BTK, but it's like, I was on a flight when I was listening to an audiobook about him, and the flight had a lot of turbulence. So I was already kind of like nervous. Then it like gets into some of the terrible things that he did. And unfortunately, some of it was against children.
Oh,
that's where I was like, oh God.
Yeah,
so it gets really dark.
Like that whole family and like the little girl.
Yes.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh, that's the one that stands out to me.
Yeah. He's one of those I imagine was, I mean, all of them are terrible, but that when he, murdered his victims, that it was so brutal and
violent,
just vicious. Yeah. There's definitely like a demon in that guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, big time, worst of the worst. And I haven't heard much about him lately. I wonder what obviously he's in a prison, but it's like I wish that he would give an interview like Dahmer did or something.
Right.
But he hasn't given any interviews that I know of, or nothing recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what always fascinated me about Dahmer's another one that we both have always been fascinated by. But, he's one of the few that at least acknowledge, like, don't ever let me out. I am a monster.
Yes.
But I think BTK is just chilling, playing cards in prison like nothing happened. He looked like he just didn't give a shit, even when he was caught.
Yeah, he's like you said, he's just completely dead inside. And it's like in one way I'd want to hear from him, but in another way, it's like he's just so disgusting, and who knows if what he says is going to be honest. I kind of recall maybe hearing some interrogation video, like tapes of him, or I think he was just, from what I remember, it's been a while, but I think he was like so to the point, very robotic about his crimes. So, like you said, he's so dead inside. He's just so robotic when he goes over what he did and why he did it, I think. But
that's kind of what it sounded like with, based on the book I just listened to with Gary Ridgway. It was kind of like that too. It was just very matter of fact.
Was he like the Green River Killer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that one fascinates me because didn't Ted Bundy call in a tip to the FBI?
Well, they actually went down and talked because it was it was in his neck of the woods up there in Washington, and it was when he was in prison in Florida, and it was more because he wanted to provide them information on like getting into the mind of the killer more because he wanted him to be caught because he was creeping up on his body count. Like it was his ego of like, well, I don't want you to be a better serial killer than I was. Like,
damn, that's crazy.
I know. Well, and at least that's how because they talk about that. Ann Rule, the book that I've listened to about the Green River Killer was written by Ann Rule, who was like friends with Ted Bundy, and that was how she portrayed it. She was like, basically they went down and talked to him because he offered, like, hey, I can give you information, blah blah blah. And some of the stuff he said panned out, some of it didn't. But I mean, because they all pretty much they could probably guess a lot of the stuff that was going on in each other's minds if they really wanted to. But
definitely,
I kind of wish they wouldn't have executed Ted Bundy, so we could have gotten into his head a little bit more, like, and found out, because he would have talked about it all day because he was such an egomaniac. Like,
yeah, he's so narcissistic, which it makes perfect sense that the reason why he called in a tip for Green River Killer was really just like to help his own self and
to get attention. And like, exactly, like, here, come talk to me. Nobody's paying me any more attention.
Yeah, exactly. These guys are just so freaking narcissistic. They are fascinating. Like, I really want to jump inside their brain and see exactly what it is about their brain that's different from like the average human being, and how they're formed and all that. It's crazy. I'm so fascinated by it.
I know. Me too.
Well, the second question is, what is your favorite podcast category after true crime?
So I would say it's business. Weirdly enough, I love business podcasts. My favorite one is How I Built This with Guy Raz. And I don't know if you guys have heard it, but he interviews these business owners, like the person who created Larabars. Larabars are those and I just love to hear their stories, and I love his interview style and just everything about the podcast. So I do listen to quite a few business podcasts. And then I would say I used to listen to like comedy, like pop culture podcasts. But I just have so much true crime that I listen to now, and like the business, I just don't have time to listen to it all. But, so I would say like business podcasts, as boring as that is.
That is exactly what happened with Brooke. I'm going to tell you this quick story. I started listening to podcasts first. And I listened to like Joe Rogan. I love Joe Rogan. And Brooke would be in the car with me, and all I'd be listening to is podcasts. And so she kind of eventually, it just sunk in, and then she was listening to mine, like Fighter and the Kid, Joe Rogan, in her own car,
and then Chris
the Nerdist. Yeah. And now she has 700,000 true crime podcasts on our subscription feed. I can't even find mine.
Oh, yeah, it's totally
I can't even find my pod. When I'm scrolling through it, I'm like, where in the fuck are my 4 that I like?
Yeah.
Yes. That is, and honestly, you will never forget the person that like turned us on to podcasts, because I, like you, Brooke, and probably you too, Randall, like I am a podcast junkie and I love them. And I just remember I had a really shitty commute driving into Beverly Hills every day, like 4 years ago for work. And some guy at work, I would come in all angry, like, oh, traffic sucks. And he's like, well, have you listened to podcasts? And I was like, felt so old at the time. He's like a millennial, you know? And I was like, what's a podcast? He's like, oh my God, let me show you, So I downloaded Serial, and the rest was history.
Well, and that was, I think, one of the first true crime ones that I started listening to was Serial. Like, cause once, started listening to podcasts, it was mostly the ones Randall listened to. And then I was like, oh, well, Chris Hardwick has one. No, of course I'm listening to that. All of them. And then like, I don't know. I ventured off and it was like Serial had me obsessed and S-Town. And then I was like, and then I found My Favorite Murder and I was like, where the fuck has this been all my life? And like, because especially like, I mean, with them, how, you know, it's like a comedy murder podcast.
Yep.
So it's like, it kind of lightens it up a little bit too. But, and then just, you know, I'm way deep in the rabbit hole of everything. Like, I probably am subscribed to 20 different true crime.
Speaking of My Favorite Murder, do you know, is it a thing within the true crime community? Like, has everyone recognized, like, golly, that has gotten huge, what they can do with My Favorite Murder, like all their traveling tours and shit like that. Like, the possibilities it's incredible. Not only like financially, but just getting the word out and, you know, helping in these cold cases, keeping them relevant and, you know, speaking about these victims. I told Brooke the other day, it's like, I'm not the hugest true crime fan at all, but I see the value in them almost as like it's having, you know, hundreds, thousands, millions of private investigators out on the streets looking into these cases. So there's a big contribution besides just the, you know, the entertainment value that I think true crime really does provide.
Oh, you hit the nail right on the head. And in fact, I learned something interesting when I was at CrimeCon. My friends, John and Rich from the Crime podcast, Crime with 3 Eyes.
Oh, yeah.
They were on Podcast Row and they were like, Jamie, it's so crazy. We have people coming up to us who were sent here by families of murder victims or people who have been missing. Their families paid for these people to get tickets to CrimeCon to go hit up all the podcasters to see if they will tell their loved one's story on their podcast.
Oh my God.
It is incredible. There was also a girl there, and I mean, I teared up talking to her. She was so passionate. She was just this little bulldog of a girl, and she was having everybody sign a petition for her sister who was murdered by a serial killer, but still she has not been classified as being a victim of his, but the family knows that she is and wants him to, you know, be charged with her murder. So she was having people sign a petition, and you're right, Randall, like people are using podcasts as a vehicle to find missing persons, to you know, catch killers, to tell, just all kinds of ways. I mean, look what Serial has done for Adnan Syed.
Yeah. I mean, there's another thing coming up where he might, I mean, like, there's a new DA or something that could be elected that said he's going to just, like dissolve all the charges. Yeah. Like,
because he doesn't think they have enough to convict.
They don't. They don't have shit.
They don't. They absolutely don't. They don't have shit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's their evidence. Their 2 main points of evidence are completely washed away.
Well,
and,
yeah,
you know,
he's been in jail for 20 years because of a testimony. Like, just some. It just blows me away. But
it blows me away.
Yeah, and there's. I don't know if you listened to Up and Vanished.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was based here in Georgia. I mean, that one, you know, that ended in people getting arrested and like nobody knew anything. It was the coldest case in Georgia for 10 years. And then after, you know, Payne Lindsay started that podcast and got so many eyes on it, they made an arrest. Like, I mean,
and that one fascinates me because I still ended the podcast. I still had a gut feeling that that maybe even that one of those guys actually wasn't involved, but I can't remember what made me think that, because I was kind of like wishy-washy on, okay, one of them was definitely involved, maybe the other one was or wasn't, but I don't know. I still would like to learn more about that one. But yes, you're right. Like, you know, Payne Lindsay put it out there and like, you know, there you go. The podcast airs and then you've got arrests, which, like you said, it was cold for many, many years.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's insane.
I mean, I wonder when it's going to get, or it wouldn't surprise me if different parts of law enforcement eventually start almost consulting out to some of these, because some of, the bigger podcasts in true crime, they do full blown, investigative work, and they scour Reddit, and they get like, it's crazy. It blows me away. They got shit that, that the police don't have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they bring new evidence, and these are amateur, these are not detectives. These are not private investigators. These are not anybody in that field, but they're able to bring new evidence. It's crazy. I love it.
Wow.
Yeah,
so exciting.
That's the most fascinating part of true crime to me, is that it's, entertaining, but man, that is a way to help each other. Like there's a definite moral and, feel good in your soul part of doing a show like that. So, and I remember when the Golden State Killer finally got arrested, I've never seen anything like it, like on Twitter. When all the true crime people were just chest bumping, shirts off, pouring champagne on each other.
That was nuts. The Super Bowl for true crime fans.
Dude, it totally was. And Crime Con was like on another level.
Oh my God, it was right before. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to say, like, I've binged the Criminology podcast, season 1 and season 2. Mike Morford and Mike Verson do an awesome deep dive on the Zodiac case for season 1. And then season 2, they were covering Golden State Killer, and then he got arrested before they finished their season. So it was just so exciting.
Wow.
Do you think they'll ever get a good break in the Zodiac case?
You know what? I have new hope, because of what happened with GSK. Yeah. And I know that some DNA was submitted for Zodiac. There was a recent article that I read that they were trying to use DNA, kind of the same way they did with GSK to catch Zodiac. And dude, you never know. I mean, look, the chances are probably that the odds are stacked against it, but I think it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it was familial DNA, and I listened to My Favorite Murder this morning on my commute to work with Paul Holes, and he said it was like a third cousin is like,
yes.
I mean, it's incredible what they can do. It's freaking incredible. I was like, what? A third cousin that they ended up like tracking it down to him.
Yeah, what did you think of GSK's acting abilities at his arraignment?
Dude. Oh, fuck that guy in the wheelchair.
You fuck that guy. Yeah, no, he's bullshitting everybody. I'm sorry. So actually, I'm trying to get this guy to interview on my podcast, but I was recently connected with a very good friend of GSK's back in the day in the 70s and 80s.
Wow.
And he lived in the house directly behind GSK.
Damn.
And they were really good friends. And he was friends with him while he was out raping and murdering, but obviously he didn't know it.
Yeah.
It's freaking nuts. So I'm dying to get this guy on. And so far it's kind of like 50-50, but he has said some interesting things about GSK, and I had heard that GSK was riding his motorcycle like 10 days before he got arrested.
Oh yeah, I heard that.
So now you're gonna now you're coming to court in a freaking wheelchair and you're like marble mouth. You can't even
totally
talk.
Full of shit. Yeah.
And I hate to give any of the any credit, and this is gonna sound wrong, but at least I respect the fact that BTK is a flat out psychopath, and and I don't mean that as like I respect him, but I'm saying, at least he's not being a little bitch. That's so subpar. Like he's garbage.
Yeah, like as if he didn't know they were watching. I mean, they were watching him for so long, like Paul Holes was talking about it today that like he's 70-something years old, but all the cops that were like surveilling him were like, he moves around and does things like a 50-something-year-old. Like,
yes.
I mean, he's out there driving crazy on his motorcycle, doing stuff like,
there were some wasn't there some points that they looked at in the investigation on him or back in the day when he was, murdering and raping these women, where some of his escapes were like super athletic.
That was,
like jumping fences and hills, and like they were like, God, this guy's got to be an athlete, or pretty awesome.
Yeah, he was scaling walls and jumping down ravines, and there was actually a theory they thought that he actually injured himself jumping down like a ravine, and then like a few days later went to the hospital and was seen and treated, but he used a different name, and then they
Yeah.
tried to track, there was this whole thing. But yeah, no, he was definitely like doing some athletic stuff.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, he's disgusting.
So
Ugh,
glad they caught his ass.
gross.
No, I think I did, since you mentioned the guys from Crime with Crime. One question that I had was, do you think that you're on some kind of like list with air quotes from the TSA for those notes that you were passing that the stewardess gave them to the wrong chick?
Dude.
I was laughing so hard when I listened to that.
Oh my God. I definitely think me and Carrie are being surveilled as we speak, and I might be going down. I love you, Stevie. I don't know if you're going to have a mom for the next few years.
Oh my God, that was so funny. Like, I mean,
well, we were like liquored up, and we were on one, and we were excited. I was like, and it sounded like an awesome idea at the time, and then
until the
just
wrong
to see
person
the
gets
look-
the
Yeah, the wrong person gets 2 death threats, basically. Like, and she's being called these horrible names, like, listen, bitch,
Yeah, they were trying to send a note to these guys from the Crime podcast, and were like giving them to the stewardess, like, just give it to that guy with the hat or whatever. And then like, a couple times it went to the wrong person, and it was literally like, what did they say? One was like, you're gonna die, bitch, or something.
Yeah.
that's crazy.
I was like, oh my gosh, that's such like a true crime, like, family thing to do.
Oh my God, yes. I'm like, I'm glad you get the humor, because I'm like, I know I'm going to be judged. When me and Carrie talked about that on the podcast, I was actually a little bit worried. I'm like, people are going to think I'm a freaking bitch.
No,
like, I'm
I thought it
a
was
disgusting
hysterical.
person. But people were like, they took it. They were like, dude, that's so, they said they were laughing. I'm like, okay, good. 'Cause
Well, I wanted to ask you too about CrimeCon, because I've heard a few different things. Like, it was so much, like it blew up this year, right? Like, was this the first CrimeCon?
It was the third one, I think.
Okay, but it blew
was
up
the
in
second
numbers.
one.
Oh, second. Okay.
yeah.
And so is it true that there were like a few issues that they've got to iron out, and then next year's is in Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Next year's is actually in, what do you call it? Where they have Mardi Gras.
It's in New
Oh,
Oh,
Orleans.
it's in New Orleans?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I thought it was in Chicago
Yeah.
too. Oh, damn.
Yeah, it's in NOLA, so that's where it's going to be. But there were some things they needed to iron out this year. I hate to be on the negative side, but the one thing was when you're in, the actual Crime Con, like where it all goes down, where Podcast Row is and where all the sessions are, there was no water in sight. So these poor dude, there was no, and I felt, so at one point I walked in, and before I walked in, I was like dying of thirst. So I went and stole a glass of lemonade from this other convention that was going on. And I brought it in with me to CrimeCon, and you should have seen the looks I was getting. They were like, literally, people are like, can I pay you $20 for your lemonade?
God. Like
'Cause
they've
there
been
was no
walking through the
water.
desert all day. I mean, yeah, just a
Yes.
slight oversight. You might want to
Slight
provide some
oversight.
beverages for everybody
Yeah.
that's sitting there all day. Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah,
That's funny.
that was funny.
But I'm sure they just were like, for it being the second year, and I just feel like there has been like a huge just growth in everybody. I mean, like I feel like everybody's just busting out of their shells like, I love murder, like this past year, like, and so I think they were probably like, whoa. And with everything going on with Golden State Killer, and like just it was just like the perfect storm of like, I think they were probably overwhelmed with the amount of people that came, but that's kind of a good thing. I mean, but
yeah, it was sold out. I mean, and it definitely overall, it was like an amazing event, and I definitely plan on going next year.
New Orleans is a great place. Plenty of murder in New Orleans, girl. Be careful.
Oh, hell yeah. Lots of murder.
Yeah, I used to live in Louisiana. I lived in Baton Rouge, and I would go to New Orleans all the time, but go right back home to Baton Rouge.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh. Well, now I'm even more fascinated.
Yeah, it's it's definitely a good time. But that's a perfect place to have CrimeCon. We'll have to try and coordinate a trip down there for around that time.
I'm excited, but there is something I think going on in I know there's something going on in Chicago. Lainey from True Crime Fan Club has been trying to put something together in Chicago for 2019, so I'm looking forward to that as well.
Nice.
Yes, that'll be
Awesome.
fun. I know. Any opportunity to go mingle with the other true crime podcasters is like it's awesome.
Do you listen to Trace Evidence?
No, but I heard it's like an amazing podcast.
It's so good. Yeah. And the guy Steven that does it, he just seems like such a sweetheart. And like he cares so much about all these cases.
Yes, he does. And I've heard so much. And actually I'm subscribed to it. I just haven't listened yet. And he and I miss each other at CrimeCon, and he sent me a message. He's like, "Oh my God, I saw you when we were at that bar, and I was going to go say hi, and I turned around and you were gone." I was like, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
Because I would have loved to meet him. But yeah, everybody raves about his podcast, and I'm subscribed. I just need to listen.
Yeah, he really does a good job. It's a very like Randall's like he's falling asleep every time we listen to it in the car, like because it's a very like soothing voice, and he's like, I get so sleepy. His voice is so calming.
I love that too. There's certain podcasts I listen to, like right before I'm about to go to bed. And I've told podcast hosts that before, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I put you to sleep." I'm like, "No, it's a good thing. Your voice is so soothing."
Right. Like it's, yeah, I mean, and it's appropriate sometimes, you know, like, I mean, that's what's good. I think about your voice too, that it's just like, it fits the situation of like what you're talking about. So.
Oh, thank you.
Well, we won't keep you for any longer, and we probably need to get to bed anyways, because it's been a crazy week. But it's been so fun talking to you, and thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us.
Oh, you guys were awesome. I was really looking forward to it.
Good. Well, do you want to plug? I mean, you know, you got your Twitter and all that.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely. So people can find me on Twitter at Murderish Pod. And then they can find me on Instagram at Murderish Podcast. And then I also have a Facebook group that's Murderish Podcast. If you just type it in the search, you'll find it. And I've got an episode dropping, you know, in the next day or so. It'll be a Q&A, and it's pretty in-depth, some funny questions, and then some true crime questions, and lots of fun things coming down the pike. So
fun. Well, I can't wait. I'm always looking forward to a new Murderish episode.
Well, you guys are awesome. You guys have been so supportive, and I'm glad that we finally got, you know, to at least kind of meet over the phone.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully we can have a play date someday with Gunnar and Stevie, because I think they would.
Oh, Gunnar, that's such a cute name. Oh my God, I bet you they would get along well.
Yes, they would. He's a handsome fella. Just your girl's so cute.
Thank you so much.
Well, we really, really appreciate it. You were fantastic. We've been waiting to finally get to talk to you for so long. So we got a lot of people that were interested in hearing it, so we can't wait to get this one posted up. I think we'll post it tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm going to try and get the Sharon Hills one up tonight sometime while I'm brushing my teeth and stuff. And then
multitasking.
Yeah, because we're a solo show over here, like we and then yeah, we'll try and get this one up tomorrow night, and then we'll send you the link and everything. But thank you so much, Jamie. It was awesome talking to you.
Hey, you guys too, anytime. I appreciate it.
All right, talk to you later. Bye.
Have a good night.
You
Bye.
too.